Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Uh, we should be starting right about now, but I want us to just give 2 minutes extra to wait for the some of our panelists that we're expecting to join. So by 1:02, 1:03, we should kick off. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to you, depending on where you are joining us from. Here in Lagos, Nigeria, it's just 3 minutes after 1 in the afternoon. I want to welcome you all to this webinar on creating a culture of meaningful collaborations for transformed urban mobility and sustained climate action for African cities. The webinar is actually part of the SEMCCA program. SEMCCA is scaling up an empowering movement for climate change advocacy program, and it is hosted by the BRIC series and also the UNEP African Network for Walking and Cycling Annual Forum, which is, that's taking place between 12th and 13th of this month. So please note that this webinar is being recorded. I hope that's fine by everybody. The recording will be shared to all the participants after the event. So yeah, after this introductory session, we are going to be going straight into I think we are going to be having Jehan share a brief input, and then we'll be having a presentation from Lamata. Mr. Shitabe is already in the house. And afterwards, we go straight into our panel discussion for the day, although we are still expecting some of our panelists anyway. Then that's going to be followed by a session of questions and answers. And then we have a final round of closing remarks from our panelists. And then we wrap things up and call it a day from there. We hope to finish on time. So we want to implore all of our panelists and presenter to stay within the time allotted to them. Before we go to the next item of the agenda, I will quickly give us a context to our discussion, our conversation for today. So according to the Lagos State Climate Action Plan, transportation is the third greenhouse gas emitter in the state accounting for 20% of total greenhouse gas emissions. The state also has the ambition of becoming carbon neutral by 2050 and is committed to the Paris Agreement on Climate Change. At the community level, last mile transportation plays a very important role in urban mobility because a large chunk of the daily commuting is done within communities. According to statistics, 30% of commuting in the state is by walking and cycling. Despite the high percentage of NMT mode users, emphasis has been majorly on motorized transportation in terms of planning, designing, and implementing transport infrastructure. However, shifting the focus away from motorized transport modes to active transportation, particularly at the local government level, apart from being equitable, would go a long way in improving transportation in the state and consequently cut down on emissions. This would imply more effective and efficient last mile transportation option. Local governments play a strategic role in all these efforts as they are the closest to the communities. Even though the roles of the different levels of government are not explicitly stated, the federal system of governance in Nigeria puts 7% of the roads in the country under the local governments. And these are the roads that account for most of the first and the last mile trips. This makes the local government essential and major stakeholder in the city's transportation framework and major actors in achieving the city's climate goals. As such, they must be factored into the government's implementation plans as key actors and also equipped and empowered to localize NMT policies. The SEMCCA program thus aims to foster strong and effective collaboration between people-powered community and civil society groups and their local and local governments, thereby enabling a robust and strategic collective movement for climate action. So in this webinar, we'll be reflecting on how improvement in NMT is linked to climate change, how we can build a collective movement for transformed urban mobility in African cities that prioritizes sustainable modes, the importance of advocacy for advancing collective effort, and what mechanisms are available to strengthen collaborations among the different mobility actors, like the local government, MDAs, and the CSOs. So again, I want to welcome you all to this webinar. My name is Zinka Jones. I work with Lagos Urban Development Initiative. Now we're going to be going, I'm going to be calling on Jehan. Jehan is the representative from ICLEI. Is going to be making an input, a brief input. Jehan, you have the floor.
Hi, thanks so much, Yinka. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the session today. I'm Jahan Biku, and I'm from ICLEI Africa. And I'll be just sharing a few reflections on the SEMCCA project as far as we are at the moment. So as Yinka mentioned, the SEMCCA project really aims to bring together different actors from governments on different levels to civil society groups, community-based organizations, and find a way in which to strengthen collaboration and find better ways in which to work together to really build this strong collective movement to implement mobility, transform mobility, as well as climate action on the ground. And so as part of the project, we will be hosting 3 learning labs. And so one already sort of took place. And so the learning labs are really used as a basis to, and creating space for capacity building between actors, for sharing knowledge between actors, to foster stronger collaboration through some of the interactions and work that happens during the learning labs, and just to form a space or spaces for collaboration, for learning, and for reflection between the different actors. And so the first learning lab that we hosted as part of the urban mobility work, as well as working in Lagos, was really to understand the needs and to do a bit of a scoping and understand the challenges and the tensions faced in implementing localized urban mobility for climate change action. And as Yinka mentioned, specifically around NMT, to understand sort of the current ways of collaborations and working together. What are the tensions, and how do we sort of find entry points to strengthen these collaborations, and really to understand how decision-making happens within governments, to get a better picture. And from this, to use this as a basis to build collaborative processes and co-create something tangible in the next Learning Labs 2 and 3. And so I just wanted to share 3 key learnings that came from the first Learning Lab. And so the first one was really around finding a need. There's definitely a need to create an understanding of the different organizations that are out there. There are a myriad of organizations that are playing a very important role in advocating for and implementing local mobility and climate change initiatives in Lagos and on the ground. And so there are many actors who are well equipped to deal with or to play a role in implementation. And so, so it's really important during this process for us to demystify these different actors and sort of what they're doing. And I think this really plays a role in creating linkages for better working together, creating or potentially aligning agendas and joining forces to implement sustainable urban mobility and climate action on the ground. And I think in this way also helps to optimize resources. So using what's already available in the champions, in the organizations, in the local governments and different government departments that are there, and optimizing these resources for mobility implementation. And really shifting mindsets and seeing our actors, everyone that's working on mobility, as an asset in policy making and implementation. And so I think this is something we really want to sort of tease out in the next few Learning Labs. There's also perceptions around roles and responsibilities within local government and across government. Bit of a misunderstanding around mandates, who's responsible for different levels of implementation, and potentially leading to a position where local governments are disempowered in the ability to perform local implementation functions. And so really sort of finding ways in current processes where we can find entry points in which to empower local governments and to see and to unpack where local governments are best placed to affect changes and to implement localized NMT policies. So really bring the state policy down to a local level implementation. And then the last reflection was around collaboration and how we can consistently affect collaboration and engagement through projects, but also through policy and processes regularly and more effectively. And so currently it's happening in a very ad hoc and project-based way. So really trying to find these entry points for regular collaboration. And I would think that this is not necessarily, I feel like this happens probably across the board. And so really finding these entry points and finding ways to build better collaborative processes, we can definitely learn from this process and scale it up and replicate them in different cities and areas and local governments. So that's just a few reflections from my side. Thanks, Inka.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jehan. Thank you very much for that brief input. So we move straight into the next item on the agenda, which is the presentation from Mr. Shita Bay of Lamata. By the way, Lamata is the Lagos Metropolitan Area Transport Authority. I hope I got that right. So yeah. I'm going to call on Mr. Okay,
Mr. Jones, before you go ahead, you remember I said, I didn't know I was supposed to make a presentation of this event because I thought we were just going to discuss.
No problems. You can just share with us your thoughts. You already have the topic anyway, and I'm sure you can pull it off. So
I'm so sorry. I'm behind in this particular instance.
No problem, sir. No problem.
Let's.
So I'll quickly do an introduction, a formal introduction of Mr. Shitabe. He's a transport economist. He's presently the Deputy Director, Corporate and Investment Planning in Lamata, and is a transport economist with over 15 years experience in government, transport sector policy and strategy, public transport investment planning and public-private partnerships, research and development, travel demand and financial modeling, and environmental and social safeguard. That's quite a lot. So I'm going to call on Mr. Shitabe now. Please, you can turn on your webcam. You have the floor now, Mr. Shitabe. Please go ahead.
Yes, I am. But a little bit of confusion here because I'm trying to keep track with what the discussion is about. Sorry about that. Can you help me out here? Did you hear me?
Okay, so Mr. Shitabe, you'll be speaking on basically on NMT in Lagos, the move from policy to law.
Can you hear me now? Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry, it was my mistake. I was on the wrong. So now,
can you share your video, sir?
Yeah, I will in a minute.
Okay.
Okay. So what I was saying is that I think I've lost track a little bit about what the subject matter is here in particular. So you need to help me out.
Okay. I said the topic actually is NMT in Lagos, the move from policy to law.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So great. I think it's something practical and something that you have been involved in the process. Yeah,
that's right. Yes. Sorry about that. There's just too many things happening. In fact, I'm doing 3 things at the same time as I speak. You can see I had 2 connections. You can see my name twice because I also had it on my mobile in case I have to get up and do something else. Yes. Anyway, good. Yeah. As we all know, this whole thing started some years back with UNEP. With UNEP and ITDP working with Lamata to help to produce this policy. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, sir. We can hear you.
Yes. Yeah. So it's been a long journey. We obviously from the UNEP workshops we had 3 of them in 2016, and then we moved on to having a broad spectrum of stakeholders at an NNT conference in 2017. I think it was in October 2017. And the policy was unanimously adopted by all stakeholders. So we then tried to move it on to the Executive Council at the time, but I think the former governor just didn't have more time for us. But anyway, cut matters short. The incumbent governor, Governor Sanwo-Olu, approved the policy in September last year. And the approval also came with the directive from him to ensure that we work with the Ministry of Transport and Ministry of Justice to see how we can craft this policy into law and regulations for enforcement. But we've had challenges since then. Let's put it this way. I'm sure you're all aware that we have a set of transport sector laws right now that the House of Assembly is about to sort of enact. So all this process that we were going through the government was, as that was going on, they were also trying to finalize the transport sector law. So when we started interacting with the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Justice came back and said, look, that they think that the transport sector law covers the policy as much as possible. But I was of the opinion that I do not think that should be that is the case, because even though Lamata is charged with the responsibility of regulating public transportation, I think we need to be a bit more specific when it comes to non-motorized transport, because this is an area that has been completely neglected, not just in Lagos, all over the country. So where we are right now is that we got back to UNEP and ICGP to help us, and then they got in contact with the World Health Organization. I think the legal team, and we've had a meeting already with all the stakeholders involved. And what they've been asking for is that, okay, they need to see these transport sector laws, and they can advise us as to what's the next way forward. The Ministry of Justice is of the opinion that these laws will be adequate enough, and all we will need is to come up with the regulations to go side by side with the law, so we can enforce non-motorized transport. But I do not entirely agree with that. But the issue now is that we are yet to see the copy of the transport sector law, so that we can send it to UNEP and World Health Organization to look at it for us and advise us. But if you ask me, I would think that I don't think it's going to be adequate enough. I still think that specific provisions regarding NMT must be specified in the law. I mean, to even mention non-motorized transport inside that law. It's not, that word doesn't exist there. We talk of public transportation. Of course, NMT is an integral part of public transportation, but in this case, it needs to be specific. So it's a good thing that we even call this meeting, because I'll have to prompt my legal colleagues here to get back to Ministry of Justice so that we can get a copy of these laws and send it to UNEP and WHO, so they can advise us appropriately. But the consolation here is that at least we're on the same page with the Ministry of Justice that yes, we're going to need to come up with specific regulations for enforcing NMT. Because what they did was, Lagos, for the past few years, they've been trying to consolidate all laws, not just in transport, in all sectors. So for transport, they've also been working on it. And so it's when all that goes through, then the next step will be to come up with regulations, not just for transport, for all the other sectors they're dealing with. So what they're saying is that, well, a stitch in time saves 9. We haven't gone through the regulatory aspect of it yet. So we are confident that 100% we'll be able to, Ministry of Justice and also Ministry of Transport will be able to craft regulations to be sent to the House of Assembly for enforcing non-motorized transport. So I don't think we have a problem with that. The only concern now is that the law itself, as it is right now, I want more specific provisions about NMT inside it. So that's the issue that we're trying to resolve right now. So we hope the Ministry of Justice can get us this transport sector laws. See, the point is that the House of Assembly has not finished their work, so maybe they don't want to release it until they finish their work. But because I know they probably have a draft. But as it is in government, they're probably worried about sending out the draft before the thing is finalized. But we actually need them to send out the draft so that in case something needs to be amended or incorporated into it, it'll be done before the House of Assembly finalizes it. So I think Lamata needs to put a bit more pressure on Ministry of Justice too. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can still hear you, sir. Go on.
Yes.
You have 2 more minutes anyway.
Yeah, so what we're going to do now is that we're going to put more pressure on Ministry of Justice to release this draft so that we can all study it with UNEP and World Health Organization, so they can advise us appropriately whether or not the provisions in the current transport sector of law incorporates non-motorized transport. Obviously, I have my doubts. I don't think it does. So that's where we are right now. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Shitabe. I was about to kind of ask you about, recently, I think it was a week or 2 weeks ago, you had this committee set up by the governor.
Yeah.
You want to tell us about that just briefly in 1 minute?
Yeah, because obviously, well, that's obviously when the governor approved the policy, the approval also came with other provisions, because enshrined the policy is the establishment of this Lagos State Non-Motorized Transport Committee. So it's not just something that the government decided to form, it's actually enshrined in the policy, because that would be the best way to go about implementing non-motorized transport projects. Because if you just have a policy and there's there's no framework to put that policy into action, then it's going to be a problem. So that Lagos State Non-Motorized Transport Committee provides the framework, because it brings together all the key stakeholders, and there are quite a lot. So it's surprising that non-motorized transport, has a real broad range, all kinds of stakeholders involved, even those that you won't even think about. So we have this general committee of all the key stakeholders, MDAs, relevant MDAs, transport sector related MDAs, members of the private sector, the academia, NGOs are also involved. And it's just the right way forward. And from that, we have a design review subcommittee of the general body. And those are the actual planners who actually go on ground to do the street design and all that. So that's a smaller body. Obviously, at the committee meeting, we had proposals from Ludi, and we had another proposal from the Psychology Riding Club and the African Cycling Foundation. They're good proposals. So the next step now is, first of all, we're going to issue out the minutes of that general meeting that we had. And then subsequently, we're going to call for a first meeting of this design sub-review committee to actually look into both proposals. So that's the next step right now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shitabe.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much for that insightful talk. I was speech, or I don't want to say presentation, but
sorry about that.
really, it's okay. It's okay. Okay. Sorry, like I said earlier, we're going to have a question and answer session. So if you have any questions or comments, please note them. Now we dive straight into our panelist discussion. Unfortunately, two of our panelists not around yet. I heard one should be joining in a few minutes, hopefully. But we just have to do what we have to do. We have to move on. Yeah, let me quickly introduce our panelists that are here now. Okay, here we have first, not in any order anyway, but we have Itayu Mesele, Transport Planning Consultant, IDP. Itayu, before joining ITDP as Transport Planning Consultant, Itayu founded Ethiopian Road Safety Association, ERSA, and worked as a technical head of the Road Safety Department. She holds a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Bahir University and a master's degree in transportation. So transportation science, road safety in low and middle income countries from Hasselt University in Belgium. Eta, you are very much welcome. And secondly, we have also here Seble Samuel. She's the co-founder and organizer Menget Lesu. Seble Samuel is an Ethiopian Canadian geographer and climate justice campaigner based in Addis Ababa. She is the Global City Campaign lead for the fossil fuel non-proliferation, that's quite tongue twisting, treaty initiative, campaigning and supporting a global coalition to scale the number of cities supporting a global phase out of fossil fuels and a just energy transition. She's a co-founder and organizer of Menget Lesu, Ethiopia's Open Street Movement, a local young leader in sustainable transport and one of Tumi's remarkable women in transport 2020. Several, you're also very welcome. And we're expecting Honorable Temitope Adewale, member of the Lagos State House of Assembly, to join in this conversation. We hope he will join us soon. And also we are expecting Engineer Lufemi Joseph, who is the council engineer in Ikeja local government, to also join us. He has said will be joining also shortly. We hope things work as planned. So we go straight into our discussion. So what we are going to be doing is I'm going to be asking questions from each of our panelists, and then they have like 3-4 minutes to provide answers. And after that round, and if you still have more time, I will be asking more questions then. But that will lead us into a question and answer session, like I said earlier. So if you have any question as they discuss, you can note them. Have any questions or comments? So first, to Seven Samuel, you've been working in the in the CSO, CBO space. Now, localizing NMT implementation for more inclusive and equitable mobility. How can we better include CSO and CBO voices? What are the mechanisms? What are the regular, what are the mechanisms that you think can be helpful to be able to have a better inclusion of CSO and CBO voices? Samuel, you can unmute. You have the floor now.
Okay, thank you, Yinka. I have a funny internet connection right now, so I'm connected on my phone and my computer. I will do my screen share with one and I'll speak with the other, and hopefully it works. Can you see my screen with the title slide? Ooh.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right. So I wanted to present on this main topic within the context of Ethiopian cities and the movement Mangad Leso, which means Streets for People in Amharic. I'm a co-founder of the Mangad Leso, and I was really inspired by a lot of the open streets movements in Latin America that started in the 1970s. I just want to give a context. I guess everyone on this call is pretty familiar, but I just wanted to share this graph from the African Center for Cities that shares a lot of the modal shares of different African cities. And we see that we're dealing with a context where NMT in many cases dominates how people move around their cities. In the case of Addis Ababa, it's more than 55% of people walking, around 30% on public transportation, and only 15% are private car users. And if you go to secondary cities like Bahir Dar or Awassa, this can go up to 90% of the city. So I think we need to think about that in terms of spatial justice and how we plan our cities. And of course, we need to be planning for the majority. And in the cases of many African cities, the majority means non-motorized transport. I want to give a really formative example of collaboration. I think some of the people who I see on the call were also at this exchange. It was the first open streets exchange for African cities that happened in 2018. It was organized by Open Streets Cape Town, which is part of the civil society space, and convened active transport planners, researchers, activists, city officials from all over the continent, from Zambia, from Ethiopia, from Egypt, from Ghana, from really all over, to come together for 10 days of really intense workshops of how you can create open streets or car-free days in your own cities. I think it was really important that we all came from completely different spaces. Here I met different members of the transport bureaus of Addis Ababa. I think how you meet the different actors within the space you're going to organize in is incredibly important. We became friends. It was not a hierarchical relationship of the cities on top of the activists is on top of the researchers or whatever it is. It was a really horizontal gathering, and we realized we have completely different skill sets to share. And this was the groundwork to create what is now Mangad Leso, or Streets for People. I think one of the biggest open streets we have on the continent. It began monthly in Addis Ababa, around 15 kilometers of the city, and now it's expanded all over the country. And what we ended up doing is from the three of us from Addis that were at this exchange in Cape Town, we came back to Addis and we grew that collective of organizers. It was made up of city officials from the Transport Bureau, from Youth and Sports, from the Health Bureau, from the research space, from activists and civil society, from international agencies. We started meeting every single week to collectively co-create what has now become Mangad Leso. And I'd seen it really grow in ways that we would have never imagined. We also invited a lot of organizations that shared our vision to partake, such as citizen science, air quality measuring, river restoration, reusable menstrual cups, plastic-free campaigns, and really had an intersectional approach. I think this wouldn't have been possible without having completely diverse networks, because we all have completely different skill sets. The city transport office is able to close off the streets and do traffic management plans in a way that as civil societies activists, we were not able to, but we were able to totally support with the community outreach, with bringing all these different actors together, with supporting with the communications. Everyone put their effort where their strengths were, and we supported each other that way. And I just wanted to show like how this has continued to expand. Here are more images of Mangad Leso across Addis Ababa and the different locations, and even more here. And I think I've run out of time, so I'm just going to do one more slide, which is to show that this is not only kind of a monthly programming that we have to reclaim streets for people, although that in itself is incredibly important. We're also having a lot of impact in the policies that are taking place at the local and national level in the country. The photo that you see on the right of the Addis Ababa Resilience Strategy was taken at one of the Mangad Leso locations, and it features in the resilience strategy for the city. And then on the left, you can see the NMT strategy for the coming decade, where also Mangad Leso is included as an outreach strategy to make NMT more palpable and attainable, and imagine what the future of our streets can be. So I just wanted to share those examples of how different actors came together to collaborate for putting open streets as a priority in African cities within the context of Ethiopia. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sebly. Thank you very much. That actually was very insightful and interesting. So I have a question for you, but I think I will ask you later as we go on. Let me hear from Eitayu Mesele now. Eitayu, how does sustainable urban mobility link to climate change, climate action? Why is this important? From an expert point of view, you being an expert in the transport sector, how do you think sustainable urban mobility linked to climate change? And I mean, why is this important?
Yeah, thanks. I'm gonna keep my video off to keep my internet connection on, so I'm sorry for that. Yeah, as we heard earlier, climate change is a long-term alteration of temperature and typical weather patterns in a place. And for this, obviously, it's greenhouse gas emission plays a key role. And for this greenhouse gas emission, transportation activity plays a key role, as we know. So for these days, a lot of cities became or start to adopt this sustainable urban transport system. Why? Because this sustainable urban mobility enables people to move around by using active transport such as biking, walking. As Sabla mentioned, here we already start to apply these NMT strategies and BRT strategy also. So, for example, Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go on.
All right. Okay, thanks. For instance, bus enables us to transport like more than 40 people from place to place. Like imagine if those people have to use their private cars, then the emission level goes up. So considering such relation, as I described earlier, SEMP or Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan becomes more popular here in Africa as well. For example, here in Ethiopia, the government has been working with ITDP, UNEP, UN Habitat, and other stakeholders on planning and implementing sustainable urban mobility plans. For instance, as I told you earlier, BRT plans already is on the process to implement. And NMT strategy, as Sabla mentioned earlier, or she already showed the document earlier, it's already done by ITDP and some other stakeholders with government. So it's ongoing project already, it's on the way to happen. So not only that, but recently the capital city also launched this bike share system as well. I was part of this project. So this shows all the governments, stakeholders are willing to change this trend, the previous trend. So, however, it doesn't mean it's so an easygoing job. One of the main challenges, like political willingness and commitment, as well as having enough resources to implement these plans. So I think I already explained what is the relation between this climate change and urban mobility, because if we reduce the transportation activity or this motorized transportation activity to non-motorized or less motorized vehicles, we will have, of course, a better climate, or we will manage to manage this climate change challenge. Thank you. I hope I'm in time.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Etayu. I'm glad you mentioned political will. I think it's a very key. It's very key when it comes to NMT. There's so much talk, but less. There's not enough corresponding action, just because there's no political will. Yeah, before we go on, I'd like to introduce Mr. Engineer Olufemi Joseph is right here. Engineer Olufemi Joseph, like I've mentioned earlier, is just a minute, I'm trying to. Okay, so Engineer Olufemi Joseph joined the civil. He is the current council engineer in Ikeja local government here in Lagos State. Before he joined the service of Lagos government, he joined the service of Lagos Government Service Commission, and he has over 30 years of experience, as it were, and providing and supervision for infrastructure facilities, and at the municipal level. He's presently director of engineering. He has been for 18 years an advisor to executive chairman of 8 local governments in Lagos State on all technical engineering matters. So Engineer Olufemi, you are welcome, sir. You are muted. Engineer Olufemi, you can unmute yourself and just speak to us. I want to be sure you are there with us. Okay. While we wait for him, I would like to ask my questions. This question goes to Sebli. Your insight actually was, what you shared was actually very, very insightful. I want to ask, what approaches or mechanisms can cities use to embed collaboration to ensure insight, meaningful, and consistent? Did you hear me?
Okay,
So I'm asking,
yeah, the question is,
what approaches or mechanisms can cities use to embed collaboration to ensure insights, meaningful and consistent? Yeah.
okay, I hope you can hear and see me, or at least hear me.
Yeah,
Okay, I think something that's really important is understanding that everyone who's trying to make NMT possible has completely different skill sets. And so allowing the organizing collectives to be incredibly diverse and not hierarchical in any way. I think that was something that was really important about the organizing collective that we have for Mangad-Leso is we're friends because of the organizing we've done together, of meeting on a weekly basis and co-creating this movement together. There are things that honestly I remember when we were thinking about this, we thought, how are we going to be able to do a traffic management plan for such a massive city? Obviously, we do not have that ability, but it's something that comes really easy to the traffic management agency or the transport programs management office. But then there's also, setting up all of the social media platforms or ensuring that there's a ton of community engagement, or areas that other actors had that more experience in. So I think just ensuring that there's regular meetings or convening spaces for the organizing of these processes that are completely horizontal, like no hierarchies, and ensuring that people come together on a pretty frequent basis to be able to create whatever the end product is. It could be an open streets project, it could be bike sharing, whatever it is, knowing that if you don't have those actors in the spaces, they're going to be neglected in the outcome of the project also. It will make it infinitely stronger as a project if you can have all those people from the get-go designing and implementing and changing it as needed. So I think, I don't know the case of Lagos very well, but if this NMT policy is going through, I think it should have, a lot of input from civil society space, from research space, from academia, from the city, from activists, all with equal voice.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I would like to call on Engineer Olufemi Joseph. Are you there now? You can unmute yourself now. Engineer Olufemi, you can unmute.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. This is Oladijoy Wole.
Okay, Mr. Wole, good afternoon.
Yeah. Good afternoon. Yeah, he's been trying to connect and all that, and in the middle of meetings and issues, So
okay,
he just said I should undo the process for now.
Okay, good. So I will be I'll be pushing his questions to you. Is that fine?
It's okay.
Okay, I'm trying to.
Problem.
So I'm trying to get. Okay. Wale, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, excellent. So his question is basically on how you can integrate NMT, into your transport implementation plan. What do you need to achieve this? I mean, what are the challenges and the opportunity? I mean, yeah, basically. Did you get the question?
Okay, that's what
how
are the
can
things
you integrate NMT into your
NMT.
transport implementation plan? That is the non-motorized transport. How can it be integrated into the transportation plan for Ikeja, specifically speaking, Ikeja local government? And I mean, what are the things that are needed to achieve this? And I mean, what are the challenges or as the case may be, opportunities?
Yeah, thank you for for the privilege to be able to stand in for Engineer Femi at this time. Primarily integrating LMT into the plan, transport system in Ikeja primarily as a focus. For me, it begins with adequate transport planning in terms of organization of the flow of traffic. That's the major primary thing that must be considered in integration, the flow of traffic and time management. So if you want to plan for the movement of people from one location to the other, and you want to reduce, primarily I know that it's about reduction of carbon emission, basically monitoring and stabilizing the climate, so to say. There has to be proper timing involved in the transportation system. Let people know when they will be picked up from a particular place. If you are using, for example, in Lagos, the PRT, and when the Marwa that we know is here is going to be picking you up at a particular place. And the next thing is the location you'll be dropped and the time you have to take a walk from that place to where you are going or to the next destination. So the major thing is to increase how long people can take a walk, okay, in the transport mobility system, and how long we can use things like bicycles. If we have to create a system where we encourage people to use the bicycles to leave their homes with the bicycle, park it somewhere, then from there, take a bus or you take a bike. If it's a small bus, or you take a Mara tricycle, if you can take that from that location, that in itself, is a way of integrating, NMT in policies. So primarily it's about planning the network and infusing timing in the process, because everybody thinks about time. That's why in Lagos, you see people waking up as early as 4 a.m. to take the next bus. So then the other thing that needs to be included in the infusion is security. Security is very, very important. If there's no quality security system, then there'll be so much fear about movement. When you can take a walk of 100 meters or 50 meters, because of insecurity, you can decide not to take that walk. You want to take the next bike you find, even from your house. But if there's security and safety, then you can say, well, let me take a long walk. It's not a crime. Within 100 meters is fine. I can take 100 meters walk, and that kind of thing. So there has to be an integration of security, safety, time, and adequate transport in itself, transport mobility planning in itself, adequate planning of vehicular movement, so to say. That's what I mean by adequate planning of vehicular movement. So holistically, all those things need to be well connected for now.
All right, thank you very much, Wally. Thank you very much for that input. If you have any question, I'm speaking to the broad house now. If you have any questions, please, you can put them in the chat box. You can put your questions in the chat box, and yeah. So, Wally, I still want to ask a question. Really, I need some clarity. I want to really understand what exactly do you think is the role of the local government when it comes to NMT? I mean, I want to kind of bring it home and be very practical. What exactly does, I mean, how does your local government integrate or kind of integrate NMT or kind of implement NMT? I think that's the word, implement NMT within its communities. And I mean, what are the challenges you are facing? Is there any role you guys are playing? I mean, are there initiatives you are putting out? I mean, or if there are none, or if there are, what are the challenges you are facing really in practical, specific terms? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. You know, Lagos generally is a is more like a standard construction site right now. So if you understand what I mean, you know, if you understand what I mean, like Lagos is a construction site. There is construction going on everywhere. And until to a certain level, the construction is done to a certain level. Some social structure or some structures cannot really, I mean, some of that structures cannot be implemented until the roads construction, the bridges, and all those things are well done. Like, for example, presently, you know about the construction that is going on along Ikeja, that's from our Way, crossing over to the expressway. You know, that in itself is a major, it has a major effect on the flow of traffic. So that is the number one, you know, challenge that we're having in Ikeja right now. So, but primarily looking at going further to how to now, you know, integrate the whole process in Ikeja. You know, like the local government primarily works with NGOs. That NGOs are coming, you know, that makes suggestions as to development ideas. So they have such people that come in, and once such suggestions, you know, come up, you know, they work with them to implement them as long as it's going to impact the people positively. Okay, so that's one of the things that local government is doing. Then in the local government, we have like, you know, one of the reasons we, you know, I'm just joining the meeting, like a lot of people, like somebody called me from your office, you know, is because we went for an inspection of many of the sites of our construction, road constructions. You know, people want to see that, oh, what's the local government doing? What's the local government? So we have to be taking them down to see, to show them what we are doing. There's so many roads that have been constructed by the Ikeja local government, you know, at the moment. And with all that, it means that, you know, there are some ideas in the pipeline, you know, as to integration of any form of idea that can ease the flow of traffic, that can ease the movement of goods and services within the community. You understand? So many things are going on, so many things, you know, for want of time.
Okay, thank you very much, Wale. I will be going to Mr. In fact, Mr. Chitabe, it's like we are connected, really, because I was just about throwing a question at you. I want to ask how, Mr. Chitabe, this question is actually for you. I want to know how much is are the local government or the local government systems kind of, how much are they kind of represented or included in your NMT plans? Then you can also make your contributions.
Well, thank you very much. The contribution I was about to make was because I didn't realize that we had a member of chairman of a local government here with us. I believe Mr. Olufemi Joseph is from Ikeja local government. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Put it this way. The local governments are an important stakeholder in all this. In fact, without them, we're not going to achieve anything because we're talking about implementation on at ground zero. If you notice that the NMT committee that we just established, local governments and LCDs are members of the general committee and also the design review subcommittee. They're members because they are the ones that are closest to the people, and therefore they are the ones that are going to help us or even guide implementation, on the ground itself. I'll give you a little example. Obviously, with the policy, the first place we've tried to roll out the policy as a pilot is on Catholic Mission Street, Afar Baliwa Street. I don't know whether you've gone there to see what we've done. But I must tell you that we've not received any cooperation for the Etiosa, Lagos Island, West LCDA. Each time we write letters, they never respond. Not at all. Even before that, we had workshops. We had a workshop on the pilot project, which GIZ is funding. And we sent out letters to all the stakeholders to come and attend the workshop so they can see what we're trying to do. They didn't show up, they didn't attend. And they're important. You know why? A lot of encumbrances on our sidewalks. Traders, people selling cars. Go to Catholic Mission Street, CBS. It's an embarrassment. Right in front of King's College, the Federal Court of Appeal, the Lagos High Court, you have right directly opposite, you have people selling cars and doing mechanic workshop, messing up the whole sidewalks. And we've called for their cooperation, they don't answer us. So it's very frustrating. Next to St. Nicholas Hospital, where the pilot scheme actually starts right in front of right next to St. Nicholas Hospital. There's a woman there cooking, big pot of fire, cooking whatever she's cooking on the street in broad daylight. It's horrible, miscreants. And I tell you what, at night, that place is not a safe place to walk. And that's why I said NMT is such a multidisciplinary, has such a multidisciplinary landscape that we require this support and cooperation of all. The Lagos State Electricity Board, you can see they're also members, and they also be members because you need lightning. At night, you cannot walk on Catholic Mission Street TBS. They'll snatch your bag, they'll cut you. People have been killed on that street. I can imagine in front of the nation's premier college, King's College, in front of the high courts, and such nonsense is going on. It's horrible. And this is, in fact, the governor's backyard. So we need the cooperation of everybody. When it is going to work, it's not for one person. Lamata's role is to coordinate. Yes, we will coordinate sector-wide management and ensure that there's consistency in policy formulation and implementation. But you need the cooperation of all. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. That place is a mess at night. I mean, that's just the pilot. They vandalized all the traffic signals that we kept there. Many of them have been vandalized. So this is where the local government, we need their support, because I don't know what's going on. I don't know why. If you go around the TBS loop, you see cars parked indiscriminately. It's horrible. So the local governments need to step up and come and join us, and let's work in partnership to get this done.
Thank you very much.
That's what I want to say. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, you are not very far from the truth. We also from Ludi, we have not really had a very nice, in fact, handshake, so to speak, with the local government. That is just a local government specifically. It's not been very easy working with them, on all of our projects that we've actually had there.
Before you go, sorry, yeah, I know you're talking about the but sorry. In this particular case, it was the Lagos Island local government.
Okay, Lagos Island, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Specifically, the Lagos Island West LCD that covers city area. They've never showed up for anything before.
Exactly, that's the same one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
thank you very much for that. Now, I would like to ask Eitayu, how can we really achieve NMT accessibility and inclusiveness? Just share some tips. Eitayu. Are you there? Eitayu, are you there?
Mr. Jones, just very quickly, just to make a comment. Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, go on.
If you take a good look at that policy, I'm sure you have a copy of the policy now. You have the copy of the policy. Just run through all the key stakeholders there. In fact, I think we probably omitted one or two because each time we think, we realize that, oh, this is supposed to be there, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
The Ministry of Local Government is a member of the committee, of the General Committee, while the LCDAs and LGAs on ground are in both committees. So maybe one way to go through this is maybe we will have to have discussions with the Ministry of Local Government, who regulates all the local governments, so that they can be aligned with their responsibilities. Because if you say you want to talk to this, you want to talk, you don't get that kind of coordinated action. So maybe the right way is to go through the Ministry of Local Government, who are the regulatory body for all local governments, and try and imbibe this, make them understand what is going on. But they are members of the General Committee. So that's why the committee has been formed. Because now we'll start to thrash out all these matters. And we'll start to say, okay, you MD, you particular MD, you're supposed to be responsible for doing this. You have this specific responsibility. Why are you not doing it? Those are the things we'll be discussing at the committee. Unfortunately, that day we had a 2-hour program, which was very short, and we had to rush everything because it's online, right? But subsequently, all the meetings now, we'll try to be as physical as we can so that we can look at ourselves in the eye and try to it. But the local governments are so important in what we're trying to do. We can't even achieve anything without them cooperating with us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, Eitayu, I was asking, how could we achieve NMT accessibility and inclusiveness in a city like Lagos? Eitayu, you can unmute yourself now. Are you there? Okay. While we wait for our Sebi, another question is to you. Can you share some tips on working with government and CSOs? It sounds like in Ethiopia it has been successful when implementing car-free day. So can you share any tips? Because really, Lagos, here in Lagos, I think Ludi specifically has kind of, we've done a few things around that, a few initiative around that, but I mean, just share, what are the tips? What tips do we share? How can we work more with the government and CSOs?
I mean, we have some of the local governments on this call, so I think that's probably really helpful. We actually worked more closely with local government than we did with national government for any of the organizing. There was transport, youth, sports, and health bureaus from the city that were part of this organizing collective. And so they organized different activities in accordance with their expertise. So the Health Bureau would give free testing for non-communicable diseases. So blood pressure, heart rate, things like this. There would be free health testing at all the locations. And then the youth and sports did a lot of the physical activity exercises. Obviously, the Transport Bureau was in charge of the road management. So we worked very closely with them every single week for the organizing. The role of the Ministry of Transport and the Ministry of Health, but I would say mostly the Ministry of Transport in scaling the scaling Mangad Lesau to the national level is they funded all of the scaling to the national level, and that was really helpful to kind of go past any barriers that took place, because then it went from a city level movement to a national one. And I just wanted to add one thing, the question you had for Eitayu. I also think that we struggle with the same issues around inclusivity, especially with gender in cycling in Ethiopia. I cycled today to this webinar, and I have still only seen myself and one other Ethiopian woman regularly riding bicycles in the city. And there's many barriers and reasons for that. I think that there's not classes and teaching available for young girls to transition to adolescents and adults who continue to cycle. But then we're also dealing with sexism and catcalling and patriarchy on the streets that makes it also unsafe for us to be cycling on streets. So I think that we need to be thinking about much bigger picture issues when we're also thinking about cycling and the reasons some bodies feel safe to cycle and some bodies don't. And also including accessibility for people who move in wheelchairs or things like this. So I think that has to be, again, people who are part of the organizing from the get-go.
Thank you very much, Sebli. Ita, are you there now? Okay. Okay, Tayo, you want to take a shot at it? You're muted. Okay. Now let me quickly, there is somebody also in the house, in the room, Eddie. I'm trying to. So we also have Eddie Chikuta, coordinator of Lusaka Waters Security Initiative, LUWSI, in the room. If Eddie, do you want to share some things with us? You have like 1-2 minutes. Want to share with us some of your learnings in your in your programs?
Thank you, Yenka, for that, and apologies for coming in late. Just had some internet issues here. And I have been following the discussions, and it's quite, I think, interesting to learn about the different, I think, scenarios. And I think for the case of Zambia, it's quite a bit interesting because non-motorized transport is a discussion that we're still having now, and it's not even anywhere close to being implemented on the ground. And it's quite a climate change issue that we're raising as civil society organizations, because people, there are no NMT strategic plans that have been put in place, and for us, we have been now put in a position where we're engaging government and different civil society organizations to come together with other partners to discuss this critical issue to ensure that we deal with this issue. So people actually fear to in Lusaka, for example, because you will get bashed by a car. Through the Lusaka Water Security Initiative, which is a coordination platform, we have been bringing different stakeholders together strategically on an issue of water security, but we are also galvanizing community level support to ensure that we better create enabling environments for government and different civil society organizations to coexist, to co-create innovative solutions around water security, but also just the development aspirations for the city.
Oh, thank you very much, Eddie. Thank you so very much. I think Dennis wants to say something also. Dennis. Dennis, are you there?
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Jones. Good to see you.
Same here.
And thank you, Eddie, for that live background. Quite refreshingly beautiful. I haven't been on the screen virtually all day. Good afternoon, all. Great panelists. I came in while Mr. Shitabe was speaking from Lamata, and he spoke to the committee, the NMT committee for Lagos State, which incidentally is gearing up to work. And by the way, my name is Dennis from African Cycling Foundation. So he spoke quite, disheartenedly about the lack of cooperation from the local government. Incidentally, that is a very, very salient structure or sector in this collaboration, in this very important collaboration that we need to achieve towards, we need to achieve goal in the NMT pilot and then going forward. You know, I always lament about a similar scenario to friends when we are on the streets. And I see that the local government is the closest to the people. You see interventions like not to park abruptly are things that will help the non-motorized persons if the local government and authorities could help to enforce proper parking for vehicles, private vehicles, and even commercial vehicles. And then many times you see people selling on the wrong parts of the street. I know in some cases people have highlighted the need to make the pedestrians and cyclists path bigger to accommodate such scenarios. But the cases that are applicable to us here in Lagos are quite pathetic. And so just to say well done, and there will be need to really crack that code to get the local government authorities to participate and share with us in this campaign that will be going on live soon in Lagos State. You know, without them, we can't achieve anything. We just need to find a way around it, win them, you know, target campaigns to them, awareness, and I'm sure they will listen, especially when we approach them as a coalition, as a collective, as has been said. So great talk and panel session by you, Yinka, and all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Itayu was raising her hand.
Yes, because my internet was slow. I'm so sorry. So
It's okay.
I couldn't really answer the question, even if I heard it. So I guess it was about inclusiveness in accessibility of NMT. So
Exactly.
yeah, for NMT, obviously we follow the design procedure so that we can construct these facilities with, let's say, higher density population around higher density population. But for the inclusiveness, and also for women and for people with different disabilities, like here in Addis, we have seen, or there are a lot of like bridge crossing. From previous designs, it was like a lot of bridge crossing in the city, which discourage people not to walk around. So we are trying to integrate or to shift this bridge crossing to add great crossing so that we can encourage people to walk in.
Itayu, I think your internet is a little bit it's fluctuating.
Yeah, to make it easier to cross the road. So such kind of activities are doing or ongoing.
Hello, Itayo. We can hardly hear you. We lost you at some point. It was cracking. Now, I'd like to, as we round off now, I'll have the last question for Sebli Samuel. I just want to ask, apart from, what are the resistance you experienced, you encountered while you were putting together that is the Car-Free Day initiative? What are the constraints? What are the challenges you faced, and how? From which channel did they actually come from, and or from which actors they actually come from, and how did you scale the audience? Something.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize it was for me. Can you repeat the
Yeah,
question?
I said, while you're putting together your initiative, like the Car-Free Day initiative, I just want to know how, I mean, what are the challenges? What are the resistance? Were you, I mean, did you face any resistance? And if you did, from which quarters, and how did you, how were you able to overcome those challenges? What were the creative ways you kind of through which you have overcome those challenges?
We had a lot of challenges as we were beginning this, as we were beginning Mangad Lesao, because it's something that had never happened before. It's funny how people feel so entitled about the status quo and how dare we reclaim streets for people, even though this invention of vehicles is not, you know, nearly as old as the countries we live in. But anyway, areas where there are.
Okay, we lost you at some point.
Okay. How is it now?
Yeah, better.
Okay, I was just saying we had a lot of resistance at the beginning because, especially with vehicles that were trying to enter the area that we had blocked off for cyclists and pedestrians. It was especially challenging in areas where there was many feeder streets going into the location, because it meant we had to be blocking off more intersections. And if we didn't have enough volunteers or traffic officers, then it was really difficult to block that area. There was also difficulty with politicians who wanted to use Mangad Lesao as their own political brand. We were really adamant that this Mangad Lesao does not belong to anyone. It's the democratization of public space for everyone, and it does not belong to anyone. It's for everyone. So we had to kind of be really weary of those kind of supposed partnerships that were mainly like a political branding exercise and steer away from them. I think especially getting the support of the Ministry of Transport was helpful in that sense, because then we had a national backing for the movement. But we had unexpected cancellations, which would be really heartbreaking, because you'd spend a whole month putting all of your energy into this event and then it wouldn't happen. And those were more common at the beginning, when it was something unheard of, until it started to become normal and even demanded by the community themselves. So we even had experiences where there was a last minute cancellation, but the communities block the streets themselves. That's, I think, the biggest hope we can have, is that this continues in perpetuity, and then we become not necessary anymore, because it's been completely taken over by the community. And I think we've seen that in examples for Latin America, where there's been more than 5 decades of open streets or car-free days happening on every single Sunday or public holiday. That occurs regardless of what political regime is in power, and is more of the people than anything else.
Yeah, thank you so very much for those answers. I actually had asked because I think they're just similar challenges, similar resistances that I kind of expected across states in Africa. Now, to kind of wrap it up, I will be asking, I think these questions I should push it to Wale. Wale, are you still there? I want to ask you, because you know where the shoe pinch is, you wear the shoes were at the crux of this whole thing, work in the local government. How do you think local government can be empowered to be active, or to actively take part in the process of implementing NNT and integrating NNT into the transport framework, especially at the local level?
Okay, thank you very much. In terms of empowerment, you are talking about empowering the local government.
Yeah, how do you think, I mean, this can be done? In what ways can the local government be empowered to be able to kind of perform this function, which I think is actually within their purview?
Yeah, thank you very much. Now, considering the nature of the Nigerian system, we know that we have the state, who is in charge of the whole, the whole area. So primarily, there has to be a high level of integration and communication from the state with the local government. If the local government can come up with ideas and policies, they can come up with ideas and policies. It's true. But the point is that there has to be integration. There has to be cooperation. There has to be, the state needs to communicate with the right people. Like I heard, I don't know, the director that was speaking from Lamata, Minister of Transport, like he said that there was communication with Ministry of Local Government, but the thing is that I think that communication was not directed to the right people in the local government. It was, bureaucracy in the systems. So I think there has to be accurate. You must know the right people to communicate some things to, so to speak. We need to hit that. So when we get the right people in the local government, there's adequate communication. Then the local government primarily has its own plan. But if the local government follows its own plan and the state comes tomorrow and say, no, we are demolishing what you just built, then that is a waste. That is why there has to be adequate communication and collaboration. That is very vital. We can say, oh, local government has a tendency, or they should have autonomy and all those kinds of stuff. But that communication and collaboration must not be, taken lightly. I think that's the major thing here.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, I think Mr. Tabi wants to react to that.
Yes, can I respond? Sorry, I was actually
in 30 seconds, sir.
Yes, because when I was talking, I didn't realize Mr. Joseph was still online, so he probably listened to everything I said. I never said we went to the local government, to the Ministry of Local Government. I said we tried to communicate directly with the chairman of this LGs and LC. That's what we've been doing, but they don't even respond. They have never responded. I'm not talking about when I brought in the Ministry of Local Government, that is for the general committee in which the Ministry of Local Government is a member, So I'm now suggesting that maybe the right way is to go through the Ministry of Local Government, since they're the regulatory body for all the local governments, so that this sensitization process can, take hold from there. That's what I'm saying. But the local governments, maybe your local government is responsible, Ikeja, so I'm not going to say anything about that, because we've gotten a lot of cooperation with the Ikeja local government, doing many things. I can attest to that, building a terminal and all that. But I was talking about Lagos Island. They have not been responsive at all. So
thank you very much.
And so we have to do something about that.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Really.
So I just want to
okay, just in one second.
Yeah, just to add that I think there just need to be follow-up on the communication. Sometimes, this chairman can be so locked up in a lot of things. To attend to, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Wale.
No problem, Mr. Joseph. Thank you.
So to wrap up, I think we are already behind time. We'll just give Itayu, do you have anything to say in 1 second as we wrap up? Itayu, if you are there. Okay, Stephanie, do you have anything to say in 1 second to wrap up?
Yeah, I just wanted to refer back to the slide I showed at the beginning of the modal shares of different African cities, and just remind ourselves that we're living on a continent where pedestrians and cyclists dominate the streets. It should not be such a radical idea to plan for this majority, and I assure you, and I encourage you all to use as many creative ways as you can to ensure that this majority is not pushed to the peripheries of the city and the streets, but instead can reclaim the streets and have the planning be designed for this majority. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will take it that Mr. Wale had given his closing remark, and also Mr. Shita B, I believe also. So to wrap everything up, I want to thank everybody for joining in, for participating in this webinar. I think everybody, all the stakeholders are very important. The local government are the crux, at the heart of this whole, of this matter, and they play very, very important role. And I believe that the local government needs, there's the need for them to be empowered, and there's the need for them also to rise up to the responsibility. And by that, for them to do that, they need some level of, how will I put it now, empowerment and maybe capacity building, which I think SEMCCA has been trying to achieve with the SEMCCA project. And also, I believe there's need for collaboration. Every sector, all the actors are actually very important. There's need for proper communication, like Mr. Wale kind of spelled out. The agencies need, the NDAs need to communicate very well, effectively with local government. So I believe that there's a lot we can do. There's still hope, and there's still so much that can be achieved with the NMT for the, I think that's for the betterment of our city, and for betterment of everybody. That's an interest, or the best interest of everybody. So I want to thank you again for joining in this, for participating, everybody that is here. Like I said earlier, the recording will be shared with everyone. I think we have your email, maybe through email, I believe. So thank you again for joining in. Our panelists, thank you so very much. I wish you all the best and enjoy the rest of the day. So bye-bye.
Thank you.